Welcome to Pope's Plates. Today we are doing another in our series of non-traditional side dishes for your holiday meals. Today we're making two. The first is creamed spinach, a simple, easy recipe that doesn't require you to make any white sauce. The second is mashed cauliflower, which is an interesting difference from mashed potatoes for your holiday table. I'll do the first. Jennifer will join us a little bit later and do the second. Okay, I'm heating up the butter to let this get hot before I add about a clove of garlic, maybe it's a little less, and before I add the spinach. We don't want the garlic to burn. You've got to be really careful that it doesn't burn because it'll get very bitter. But this is heating up nicely, so I'm going to go ahead and get the garlic in there. And just let this sizzle a little bit. You'll notice that I've had an injury. I have to wear a brace on my wrist, which makes operating a little less efficient. I'm going to turn the heat down just a bit. I don't want this garlic to burn, but I do want it to cook. It's very fragrant. I can smell it already. I'm adding the spinach to the pot. Now this looks like an awful lot of spinach. But if you've cooked spinach, you know that it cooks down really, really quickly. So it ends up being almost none. I had one leaf go overboard. We want to get this wilted before we add the cream cheese. This is creamed spinach after all. Simple recipe. You're not having to make any sort of a white sauce to go on it. The butter and the cream cheese ends up making the sauce. While I have chosen to fix fresh spinach, you can also use frozen, but what you need to do is to cook it first and then drain it, almost to the point of taking it and putting it in paper towels and squeezing to get all of the moisture out, because you don't want a lot of wetness in the spinach. All right, this is wilting pretty nicely. I'm going to add 4 ounces of cream cheese. I've cut this into smaller pieces so that hopefully it will melt really quickly. Sort of have to smush it a little bit to get it down. Scrape it off the spoon here. And once this is completely melted, the last thing we add is about 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. This makes a really nice non-traditional side dish to have with your holiday meal, or any meal for that matter. All right, my last ingredient is Parmesan cheese. I'm going to add 1/2 cup of, I may not add that all. See how it does first, since we didn't have quite as much spinach. When I looked at this, I thought, no, that's not enough spinach. Not for the amount of sauce. So I added more. It is wilting as we speak. There's still enough sauce. And as the heat hits the spinach, it's going to wilt just beautifully. And I probably will add the balance of the Parmesan cheese. Yeah, this is better. This is better. So you see, when you sort of make a mistake, one of the advantages is that this is a very forgiving recipe. You can fix it by adding a little bit of this or a little bit of that. All right, I'm going to put in the rest of the cheese. Yes, this is much better. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the creamed spinach. I'd ask that you stay tuned as Jennifer joins us to make the mashed cauliflower.
Hi, didn't that creamed spinach look fantastic? I can't wait to eat it. My name is Jennifer and I'm going to be making the second dish, which is a mashed cauliflower. I've already put the water on to boil. You can salt the water a little bit if you want to, but you don't have to because we're going to be adding some flavoring in. And now we're going to cut the florets into equal sized pieces. I will say that I have trimmed and cored this already. You do not want the core in your cauliflower. They're just too bitter and too starchy. So I'm going to cut these. Because we're boiling them, we want them semi-equal in size so that they are able to cook at the same time. All right, I've got our cauliflower chopped up, and now I'm going to put it in the water. I can hear it boiling, and so let's get that into the water, and then we'll come back and do some other things. All right, make sure that you, again, add it away from yourself so that if there's any water that is boiling comes bouncing back, you're not burned. And again, making a mess. This pot is a little small for all the cauliflower that we have, but it's gonna fit barely. So if you really are in a hurry, you can cover it, but we're not gonna cover ours. That's entirely up to you. It will definitely cook faster and be a little mushier if we do. So we're gonna let that cook while we prepare our onions. We're going to cut this is kind of a medium small onion and some garlic. Now we want to make sure that in a minute the garlic is cut pretty small because we're not going to add this to the boiling water. So if you've been a watcher of our channel for a while, you may know that I'm not good at cutting things small, but I'm going to give it a shot. And we're going to thinly chop these. A runaway onion here. If you want a more gentle onion flavor, you can use shallots, but make sure that if you use the shallots, they're sort of the more purple ones because they have a little bit more flavor. I like onions. And then I'm going to scoot this over to the side. I've already started to chop. I'm going to use an easier knife. Some of our garlic, because this is not going to cook for a significantly long period of time, and my eyes are watering, and you don't want a giant piece of garlic in your mashed cauliflower. You're going to want to get it as small as possible. I'm going to attempt a Bobby Flay move here. Oh, handy. Look out, Bobby Flay. All right, so we have one, I would say it's a pretty large clove of garlic and one onion chopped, and we're going to put it into a buttered dish. The butter is beginning to sizzle, and I'm going to add my onion first. Let me grab that. You need to be really careful when you saute garlic because it can get bitter. So we're going to put the onion in first and let that begin to become a little bit translucent before we add the garlic in. We have a little puppy company who's excited about this. So you don't need this cooked all the way through. We just are going to make sure that we've got a little bit of color on it. I believe our recipe says to cook it for about 3 minutes and then to add the garlic. So we're going to let this saute. It is over a medium-high heat. On a scale to from 1 to high, ours is at about a 6.5. So let's let that happen and we'll get back and add the garlic. Our onion has been going for about 4 or 5 minutes and it is beginning to turn translucent. So I'm going to add our garlic. And again, we want to make sure that it doesn't burn because it gets so bitter. And so we're only going to cook this for maybe another 2 minutes because it is going to cook a little bit in the oven. I've got our food processor here. I forgot to mention that when I put the onions in, I used about a teaspoon of Better Than Bouillon chicken bouillon. If you have bouillon cubes, you can add 1 cube to maybe a tablespoon of water. It just enhances the flavor. So I've drained the cauliflower and it's on a paper towel. So I'm going to add that into our mixer, our food processor, and try not to spill it. One alternative that we sometimes do in our family, I think kind of just depends, is sometimes we roast our cauliflower in the oven. We put a little bit of water in the bottom so it steams and roasts, and it gives it a little bit more color. It doesn't really change the flavor that much. So if you've got lots of extra time, you can do that and it will just be a little bit different. Okay, so now I'm going to add our bouillon, onion, and garlic mixture to our food processor and 1 cup of sour cream. It sounds like a lot. It's funny because cauliflower often is used as the healthy alternative. This is not a super healthy alternative. In fact, we're going to add some cheese to it, but it's a delicious alternative. And I'm going to pulse it where at the end result, we want it to be like mashed potatoes. All right, it's getting there. I'm going to use my spoon and sort of put some of these larger pieces of cauliflower down in the bottom so that everything gets blended really well. So it wasn't really mixing very well, and so I'm going to just pulse it before I kind of had it going steady. All right, so you're going to be able to see here that we've got some movement in our cauliflower. I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. We're going to put in a little bit of parsley. I'm going to save some for the top. This is about a tablespoonful, but I'm not going to put it all in there. It adds some beautiful color. And I'm going to add our salt. Let me double check how much salt that is. I'll be right back. Okay, so it was a half teaspoon of salt and a half teaspoon of pepper. Now I'm going to pulse this again just a little bit, and then we are going to add some cheese and some butter. You can opt out of that if you want to. I mean, don't, but you could if you wanted to. And that's not in our recipe in the description box below, but we'll add a little note that you can add the cheese in there. That's mixing beautifully, and it looks like mashed potatoes. Our oven is preheating at 350 degrees. We're going to add in an additional 2 tablespoons of butter, but first we need to put our ingredients in our casserole dish. Let me get this big mixer out of the way and we'll get started. Oh, this is heavy. So I'm going to move our mashed cauliflower mixture. I've got a stick of butter. It says to butter our casserole dish. I'm sort of holding on to the paper so that my hands are not getting super buttery. So our casserole dish is almost completely buttered. You do not need to flour it. We're just going to butter it. And then I'm going to make sure that I have the 2 tablespoons of butter that are going to be added. So I'm going to stick that in here. I'm going to add half a cup of cheese. This is sharp cheddar. I would use sharp. I would not use a mild cheddar. And our 2 tablespoons of butter. And then we're going to finally whiz it one more time to get everything mixed in, and then we're going to put it in our casserole dish. This looks perfect. All right, so let me get this knife out of the way so I don't stab myself. I'm just going to use the spoon we had. There'll be a little bit of sour cream on it, but I'll just use the spoon that we had, and we'll mix it up. So we're going to put this in our casserole dish. One thing that one thing that I like to do, my whole family likes to do, but especially my grandmother and I, we kind of like to add things and change things on the whim. So if you want this to have a little bit more color, maybe put a little bit of cheese or breadcrumbs on the top. I'm not going to do that. I really like the way it looks now, but that would be something that would add some value, especially since this series is for holiday dishes. You want your table to be beautiful, but I think this will be beautiful as is. There's a big piece of cheese and I don't want to miss it. Okay, so this looks fantastic. What we're going to do is I'm going to put it into our 350-degree oven for 15 minutes. It just lets everything blend and meld well, and maybe we'll add a little bit of color. And when we get back, we're going to have our cream spinach and some shredded beef that we made, a pot roast for the holiday, and we're going to show you what it all looks like. This looks fantastic. I'm going to put some on our plate. This is our holiday plate. Oh, you can see the melted butter and the cheese. Beautiful. Now we're going to top this with just a little bit of parsley to add some color. We have our fantastic pot roast that we made and our beautiful cream spinach. I really hope you enjoyed this meal. I loved making it. If you make any of these or you have a non-traditional side that you love, please let us know in the comment section below. Let us know in the comment section below. We look forward to seeing you again on Pope's Plates. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. We'd love to have you as part of our family. Until we see you again, let's keep cooking.